What's up, guys and girls? The results from last week's video are in, and meh. I think a lot of people liked the idea. I think a lot of people were also put off by the speed. I found a really good response with the humor aspect of it. I'll continue working on that. But for the time being, we're going to stay with the standard format, as the audience that I've developed thus far has really been here for the in-depth reviews and theories. But I will most certainly keep trying new ideas such as that. Thanks for giving me such good feedback last week. But with that, let's move into this episode, Season 7, Episode 6, titled Beyond the Wall. The episode begins with the Inglorious Bastards marching to find a monstrous undead army, with the hopes that they can capture a single white and escape across the same slow trek that they just traveled. I expressed in depth my calculated disdain for this plan last week, but it seems that it is that straightforward. 10 to 13 people trying to fight thousands. Tormund and Jon discuss his meeting with Dany for the first time. Jon tells him that she will only aid us if he bends his hardened knee. Tormund jokes that the free folk must be wearing off on him, and then brings up old Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall, and questions how many people died because he too was unwilling to bend the knee. This is a subtle push at Jon, who most certainly expected Tormund's encouragement for not pledging to another ruler. But he wants Jon to know, while pride can accomplish a lot, it may come at the price of others if he's unwilling to ask for aid in the time of need. A good portion of this episode is spent with the band discussing the interpersonal relationships they share and have developed throughout the years. Gendry has never seen the glisten of frost nor the harsh chill of snow, and he still resents the Brotherhood for selling him to the Red Witch, and finally the Hound says,
"But they would have killed me if it wasn't for Davos."
They didn't, did they? So what you whinging about?
I'm not whinging.
Your lips are moving and you're complaining about something. That's whinging.
Which, at the cost of my beloved fiancé, has become my new favorite word. Whinging. Jon and Jorah discuss the Lord Commander Mormont and his unfortunate death. Jon offers the family sword back to Jorah, but he kindly refuses. Back in Winterfell, Arya confronts Sansa about her role in the death of her family members, accusing Sansa of doing nothing. The scene takes a surprisingly harsh turn when Arya presses harder, citing the scroll she found in Littlefinger's quarters. Sansa defends herself, reminding her that she is the only reason that they're standing in Winterfell right now. The sequence ends with one pointlessly angry and one quizzically afraid. Back north, Tormund and the Hound talk about him being a mean bastard, in which somehow leads to this amazing scene.
You want to suck my dick, is that it?
Dick?
Cock.
Dick. I like it.
Bet you do.
They then talk about his unyielding love for Brienne of Tarth, which, good God, I hope becomes a reality.
I want to make babies with her. Think of them. Great big monsters. They'd conquer the world.
Jon and Beric talk about Ned Stark and shortly after the Lord of Light's mission, which seemingly concludes with,
I don't know.
The group stops and the Hound identifies the Arrowhead Mountain from his vision. The scene changes back at Dragonstone. Tyrion and Dany talk about him not being a hero, then about Jon Snow's longing gaze. The conversation becomes about her meeting with Cersei, then somehow about who will lead when Dany is dead. I've watched the scene a few times, and by all means it's built to make it look like Tyrion is eyeing the throne for himself. It ends with,
We will discuss the succession after I wear the crown.
It's a solid scene overall, and something to note is that Dany, by all record, cannot have natural-born children, so this question is an important one. It just comes off as Tyrion either wanting to be named in case something happened, or either wanting to propose a different form of governance, such as democracy. Boom! Fucking nice bear attack. Wow, holy shit, did not know they could both do this trick. The Hound repeatedly chokes and Thoros gets a bite taken out of him. But what importance came from this scene? Jorah stabbed the mighty bear with his dagger in the shoulder and it dropped. I've pulled the Reddit gods and we agree that this was most likely dragonglass, which we have to wonder where he got it from. Now before I get, he was just at Dragonstone Dogma, don't be a bloody idiot, he has plenty of dragonglass now. Bear with me while I explain my skepticism. In the brief time he was there, he was not only convinced by Jon Snow the threat was real enough to go with him, he had 2 daggers crafted just for the occasion, but also was so confident to go into battle not with a sword, but with these 2 daggers crafted out of a material that very few have experience working with. Before I go down the rabbit hole, I doubt this will really be important. Jorah has dragonglass daggers. There, I should have just said that. Fucking piece of shit plot hole. But it also holds some symbolism. Jorah from House Mormont, whose sigil is a bear, killing a bear to save the life of others. It's also kind of funny because Tormund is rumored to have slept with a she-bear.
There's not a living woman within 100 miles of here.
We have to make do with what we've got.
In Winterfell, Sansa and Littlefinger talk about Arya. Littlefinger opens the idea of Brienne of Tarth snuffing out Arya if the situation called for it. Then Jorah and Thoros talk about the battle that they fought together. We find out that Thoros' bravery, which made him revered among soldiers, was actually just because he was drunk and wanted a proper scrap. The group comes across a White Walker leading a small group of whites. I deduced this was probably a scouting party, just based on the rest of the horde when the battle ended. But something noteworthy is that when Jon killed the White Walker, all but a single white instantly died. They later discussed that he was likely the one that raised those and turned them into the whites, which is why they had that reaction. So what we have now is a hierarchy in which one point of failure exists. If you can kill the Night King, the battle is over. If you can equally kill some of the White Walkers that ride near him, I imagine you can take out a pretty good chunk of their army. Well, they managed to hogtie the last white. The horde hears the cry, they dart across the frozen lake, and the ice breaks behind them, stranded in the center. Gendry was sent off to get a raven to Dany. He, the greatest marathon runner of all time, manages to complete said task. Thoros of Myr passes in the night. They discuss their next steps and hang in suspension, hoping Dany gets there with haste. Sansa sends Brienne south to represent her at King's Landing. She voices her concern about Littlefinger, but finally departs. The fastest raven in the world gets to Dany, and she leaves with all 3 dragons north to rescue them. The Hound throws a rock, amazingly the first time, then somehow at the same target half the distance the second time, which proceeds to let the undead army know that the ice is once again frozen. The whites invade, and they, standing their ground, almost lose Tormund in the process. Something I completely overlooked on first watch was that the whites were trying to kill or release a captured white. I highly doubt that the whites have the ability to think independently, or at least think enough to ignore the human flesh in front of them to save their undead buddy. So what I think is happening is that it works like a hive mind, and the Night King knows why they're trying to take that white, and wishes to stop it. They retreat to the last bit of land, continue fighting, and Dany finally arrives. She destroys a huge amount of the undead army, and they manage to get everyone onto the dragon. Everyone, except for Jon Snow. The Night King launches an ice lance at the dragon, and it kills it. God, what a scene this was. The cry of the dragon, the following cry of its siblings, the massive amount of blood spilling out of its body, and the sound of it crashing into the ground. It was such a well done scene. It was heartbreaking. But the crew was forced to departure with Jon sinking to the bottom of the lake. He manages to escape the icy depths and is rescued by his uncle, Benjen Stark, who stays behind and dies. A brilliant ending to his mysterious character. At Eastwatch by the Sea, Dany rests atop the wall, and the remaining dragons cry over their lost friend, flying in rotation as if searching for signs of him, waiting to hear him roar back. One last scene with Arya and Sansa. I can sum it up pretty quickly.
What are these?
My faces.
And back to the interesting plot. Jon makes it to the wall, wakes up on the boat heading to Dragonstone. They low-key admit their love for each other. He verbally bends the knee, and I cried. Dany cried. You cried. Stop making a big deal. The final scene is the dragon being pulled out of the water, touched by the Night King, and its eyes open a glowing blue. Undead, ice dragon, let's go. But before I end this video, I leave it with a question. Me and a few other YouTubers and people I know in real life have a bet going. Do you think that the undead dragon will breathe fire or ice? Comment below what you think. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Have a wonderful day. Much love.